Welcome to the Sisters in Crime Writers Podcast. Everyone has a unique writing journey, so join us for conversations about those journeys from the writers themselves. Hi, this is Julie Henricks, the Executive Director of Sisters in Crime, and I am really delighted to welcome Deliah Lawrence to the podcast this week. Deliah is a Maryland-based attorney and award-winning author of 2 romantic suspense novels, Gotta Let It Go and Gotta Get It Back, both set in Baltimore, blending sizzling chemistry with high-stake twists. A versatile storyteller, she's also a blogger, workshop facilitator, poet, and short story writer who enjoys exploring the many layers of creativity while supporting fellow writers along their journeys. When she's not writing, Deliah can be found lost in a good book, binge-watching investigation discovery, or painting expressive oil works inspired by landscapes, portraits, and her imagination. She's an active member of the Maryland Writers Association, Sisters in Crime, and the Black Writers Guild of Maryland. Deliah, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Julie. It's a pleasure to be here today.
Well, I'm looking forward to the conversation, and I'm going to start it the way I usually start these conversations. When did you say to yourself, I want to write a novel?
Okay, let's just kind of go back a bit. So growing up, I've always been surrounded by books. My family is a family of creatives. We have lots of teachers, lots of inventors. And so that creative space was already set when I was a little girl. And interestingly, in law school, I'm published in a journal for affordable housing. And I said, hey, that's nonfiction, kind of legal. And I was like, what would happen if I turned some of this into a fiction work? And so what I did was I signed up for a non-credit class at a local community college where I met some wonderful ladies. That's another story. But I said, let's get on this journey together. And I was loving it. You know, just being able to identify who my characters are, just to be able to identify the storyline. I said, hey, set in Baltimore, I know lots of police officers and former prosecutors. And I said, you know what? Let's do this. Let's write a story that intersects the 2 things that I love the most, love and justice. And so that was like many years ago. And so that's where all of that kind of came together, my analytical side and the creative side. And I said, you know what? I love reading romantic suspense. Let me write something that I could really sink my teeth into. So that's how it came to being.
I love this, and I love, the background of the law, which is so, scripted, it's dense. I mean, it's a lot, but also in writing things for that, you're telling a story, so the writing skills are there, but you need to build the craft. So you took a course, which is great, and it didn't shut you down. It inspired you to keep going. So talk about the journey, of developing craft and building community.
I think that's so important. When I signed up for this non-credit writing class, the teacher was so inspirational, and she gave all of us that jolt, that push. Mm-hmm. She said, put it down in writing. And when you write the first 3 chapters, send it to me. And I emailed it to her, and she said, I typically don't do this, but you have something here. And she sent it back, and this is going way back, it's not like line editing, in Word, let me send you a soft copy. She actually sent me back hard copy in the mail.
Wow.
In the mail. And I said, wow. So the journey, I just kept writing. And when the class wrapped up, because she was so good, I took the class again. So This time I met some wonderful ladies. And at the end of the class, I said, how many of you would like to continue this conversation by meeting monthly? And I said, here's my notebook, here's my phone number. If you're interested, write your name and number. And 18 years later, we're still hanging out. 18
Wow.
years later. Yeah. If I'm not
Wow.
mistaken, 18. So yeah, that's, so they're my writer's critique group. I run it and we still meet once a month. And now we've injected meeting every 2 weeks. We call it a Zoom write-in, which interestingly enough is coming up this next Tuesday. So yeah, my journey, it took a while, but I found a core group of ladies. We would meet before they shut down Borders, if you recall Borders.
Yeah.
We used to
Oh,
meet there. Then we started meeting at Panera Bread. Then when COVID hit, we started doing things virtual. But the journey is such that all of us were able to publish over 3 books.
wow.
Yeah, so it took a while. I will say that you need to learn your craft more than anything else because readers have certain expectations. And depending on what the genre is, they're looking for certain elements. They're looking for certain threads, so to speak. And if they don't see that and it's missing, you can't just say, you know what, I'm going to write a novel today without learning the craft. People are going to see that right away. They're going to see it.
Well, and now what is your entire writing group? And was this class romantic suspense or was it all different genres?
All different genres because, so women's fiction, one person writes equestrian novels. I write romantic suspense, and one person before she took a break, she wrote like mystical, fantasy, crime. And, it was a class, it was a how to write fiction.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right. Dramatic structure.
very general,
Yeah.
just to give you the essentials, and give you the knowledge of how to start, get it exciting, develop your characters, get into the middle, the motivation, the high stakes, and, the third act. So we learned from start to finish. And it was just such a great experience. And I still hearken to that because you need to lay the groundwork. You can't just get up one day unless you're, so intuitive and it comes natural. I think you still need to have some basis, some foundation before you put pen to paper.
Well, and story structure is certainly part of it, but you also talked about this a little bit, but the tropes, the expectations of different genres. So you and I were talking a little bit before then, and I have an addiction to threads, which I think I need to break. But there was a discussion every week. There's a flare up in book world or author world, and there was a flare up about do romances have to have a happily ever after, or they don't. That's not, and it's like, of course they do.
Of course.
That
Yes.
is the expectation. If
Yes.
you don't give, and as somebody who doesn't read romance all the time, but I've been reading it more and more lately. If I read a romance that was sold to me as a romance and didn't have a happily ever after, I'd throw the book across the room or do something else. So those are that's, you layer on knowledge, but those expectations of readers, sometimes you can upend them, but not for the real tropes of the genre. In romance,
Exactly.
they need to get, or happily for now, but it's
Yes.
got to end up happy.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. There has to be that HEA.
Right.
Happily ever after there, because that's an expectation. So even though you have the umbrella being romance and you have the subgenres, romantic suspense or what have you, you still need to have at the very end where the main characters and their lovers or whatever end up embrace, kissing, cuddling, or whatever. You need to wrap it up because that's an expectation, and they'll let you know. They'll let you know. They'll let you know.
And you can write mysteries with romance.
Yes.
But they're not romantic suspense in that they're different expectations or different rules, or you can bend the rules. Like a mystery or a suspense novel with romance, you can break them up at the end. I mean, that's, maybe not the best thing for the reader, but maybe it's where part of what you're writing, because the expectation is that the person's reading a suspense novel. You're adding romance, but there's no guarantee it's going to turn out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but for me, I think it's important. You're going to wrap up the mystery or suspense, and you still have to wrap up the love piece because it's a very delicate balance,
Oh,
which
yeah.
I try to serve. So 50-50. And if the mystery's solved, I need my HEA
Right.
personally. So, and that's what I give to my readers.
And you're also writing a suspense novel and the dramatic structure of that and everything else. But the relationship also has to have its own arc, its own ups and
Yes.
downs and challenges and expectations and everything. And that's equally important as the
Yes. The emotional journey. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And one could argue that should be for all books, that the emotional journey of the characters needs to
They have to grow.
Yes.
They have to grow. If there is no growth, if your main character starts out, being very timid, you can't have the person still being timid through the second arc and then the third arc. There has to be some growth. There has to be some emotional stakes. There has to be some danger for me. And then you have to see the person kind of reacting and growing and finding the strength to overcome these obstacles throughout the book. And at the very end, they come out much, much stronger, more confident, and just ready to take on the world.
Right. Or they've built tools that help them navigate the world if they, there's and this is the fun part, but this is also, you've got to write a lot to start understanding how to do this, how to do it well, and how much fun it is to layer in all of that stuff while keeping the story moving.
It's not easy. You also have to read a lot too. Read a lot. And, one of my favorites is no longer here, Eric Jerome Dickey. He could write. Oh my goodness. And I've met him quite a few times and he signed like the majority of my books. I have the very last book on my shelf and I haven't even, I can't turn the pages just yet because he's been gone a few years now. So yeah, but that man could write. And just reading his novels, just being able to dissect, let's see how he handles this situation. And so I would take copious notes just to watch the arc, just to watch the development, just to watch the dialogue, the scene setting. You can tell I'm excited. And it was just my guy, just my guy. And he did it so well, a very versatile kind of writer because he could write a female character so well. You're like, wow, how does he know? But he had a skill. He had a skill.
And as a reader and a writer, there is joy in reading a book and loving it and getting lost in it and then going back with the Post-it notes and the notebook and everything else and saying, how did he do this? How did she fool me like that?
Yeah.
I mean, and that's what a writer does is you reread, or if it doesn't work for you, you reread it and say, okay, when did I get out? When did this take me out and why? And how did I come back?
Yeah, you have to be able to find the clues because at the very end, if you get a result and you're like, and you start flipping the pages back and it's not there, then that's a missed opportunity. The writer missed something and that's not a good look for a writer. You need to be able to plant those clues so that, to throw you off the scent, to come back and you're like, oh yeah, I remember in this chapter, oh, that's why he or she did this. And then here we are, at the very end. And so the mystery has been solved because the clues were all planted. So it's work. That's why I keep saying you need to learn the craft. You need to understand what the essentials are before you start writing.
And Delia, don't you, because you also teach workshops and you do things, sometimes you need to let that first project go because you can't fix it because you don't know enough. You need to you need to keep writing and not get stuck on one project, because you're going to be a better writer on the next project and on the next project and on the next project.
And I agree. I have one story that's been sitting. It's been sitting for quite some time. And I said to myself, I will revisit that when I'm done with the trilogy. But it's sitting there, and I will literally have to blow the dust off of that one. And, this one, that's set in Washington, D.C. Things have already changed. So what I'll do is just look at the character, look at the storyline, see whether or not it's still relevant. But at least the bones are there. So it won't take me a lot. And I've grown personally as a writer throughout the years with my group. We support each other. We go to writers' conferences, and we keep honing our craft, as you should. There's always something new to learn. Always.
Yeah. Yes. No, absolutely. So talk to me about how you write. Do you, I call it the gravitational pull of an idea, where, you're taking in stuff, and then all of a sudden something comes together. It's like, oh, that's a book. That's enough to pull in everything else. And then what do you do with it? So talk to me about how you write.
Okay, so I'm an avid movie watcher, TV watcher. I love the drama. I love the Mission Impossibles. I love just watching a wide range of movies. And of course, you mentioned my ID, investigation discovery, and there's no shortage of drama over there. And
Yeah,
so
for sure.
I will watch, and then I said, well, what if? It starts with what if?
Yeah.
What if my character is a former prosecutor? What if she's burnt out? What if she decides to open a trinket shop selling jewelry? And what if she is about to get divorced, and on the day of her divorce, her best friend, who's her divorce lawyer, gets shot and killed right in front of her? So for me, it started with the what ifs, and I plant my characters, a storyline in Baltimore, because it's just lots of drama there, and there's no shortage of drama. And so the germ of the idea started there. And so I started writing, sketching. And for me, with my analytical brain, there's just always something underneath, and writing creatively allows me to explore that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would start plotting, and what does my character look like? Different settings, places that I enjoy going in Baltimore, things that I love to do. Some of this is injected into my stories. And so, am I a plotter? Am I a planner? I have bare bones, but when the characters start talking to me and say, hey, look at me over here, I'm like, hey, what do you have to say? And then it becomes a different story, but I run with it. So I have bare bones. I am not constricted. I am not, well, what happens? No. You leave room for flexibility. You leave room for the additional what ifs. I have characters that should have walked out of the story, but then I kept them in because they represented something interesting. They added a certain flair to the story, and so I kept them. So, plotter, planner. I'm also a discoverer. It's like, okay, what if? So I'm not really tied. It's good to have like a roadmap, but I'm not tied to it.
Now, you mentioned a trilogy. When you started that first book, when she first showed up sitting next to you and saying, the what ifs, and her best friend gets shot in front of her, did you know that was going to be more than one book, or had you thought this is a standalone?
Great question. In my head, it was a standalone. It was a friend of mine who's also another writer. It says, hey, I went to an event, met him outside, and he said, you know what? This should be a trilogy. And as a matter of fact, he gave me the names of the, I said, you know what? Would you mind if I use those names? He said, no, you can have them. So that's how the first book was called, Gotta Let It Go. Second book got to get it back. Last book, got to have it all. And so that's how it spun into a trilogy. I thought I was one and done. I really did. But then the story just kind of evolved. And I think writing a series is a lot easier because you know your characters. And so all you have to do is like change the plot line, add new characters, if you will, but you don't have to start from scratch because you know them. Yeah. They're evolving. You know, where are they today in book 2? Where are they today in book 3? So I think it's just easier, but honestly, I thought it was one and done, honestly.
But it's also lovely when you're writing a series because those secondary characters who just showed up can take on bigger roles. Something can happen to them. You know, your imagination does so much work without you knowing it and planning things for you. That's like, oh, great. You just, kind of got to let it go.
You see what you said right there?
You just gotta let it, the control freak of all of us is like, well, I'm going to plan this, but it's like, no, that secondary character who you loved is actually going to, be robbed in book 3. And that's that's what's going to start this whole thing going. And you gotta just let that go.
I'm telling you, it's for me because I know how I am. I'm a stickler for details, my brain is trained that way. And I think writing creatively kind of stretched me in terms of you can't be so regimented. This is not, criminal procedure. This is not, reviewing a contract. It's real life. It's real people. Allow yourself to immerse into a storyline where you get to play, where you get to create characters that sometimes are larger than life. And so I really have fun writing my novels. I love the characters. I love especially when readers say, "What are you doing? What are you doing? What is she doing?" I'm like, "Calm down. What page are you on?" They get mad, Julie. They call me up. Yeah. Readers call me. I was like, okay. I'm like, you do realize these people aren't real, right? They're just a figment of my imagination. Maybe pull a couple characteristics from people that I know and kind of build who they are in my novel. But the fact that it resonates, the fact that Miss Benita is a nosy neighbor. We all have one. We all know a nosy neighbor or two. And so I love that character, and she's a nosy neighbor. And you can say, you know what? My next door neighbor is just like that. And they do the same thing. I said, when I can actually write a character that is so real, that leaps off the pages, that you can say, I recognize this person, I'm doing my job.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you're not scripting it so tightly that they can't only be that person. You're giving them a worldview where it's like, oh, yeah, I know that's my aunt. I know that person.
Exactly.
I almost married that person. Yeah, I know.
I know. Oh, I have to tell you this real quick. So I was presenting to a sorority a few years ago virtually, and one of the sorors said to me, she said, "I used to be married to a man like that. I got divorced now." And, and I was like, I'm on the video going like, okay, but again, creating characters that are so real that folks are like, that characteristic, I used to be married to a guy like that. I know, a woman who lives down the street who is just as nosy or whatever. So again, I love that when I'm able to, and that's a way to connect with your readers too, because you're writing in a way that tells them, it's authentically fictionalized, so to speak. I can put those two words together. But it's you're inviting them into your world where they can step in, where they feel comfortable, where they can recognize some of the characters.
Yes, so the other thing about, so my mind's going in a lot of different places because I do think recognizing characters or understanding you've built the characters so well that your reader may not love the choices they're making, but they're in character. They make sense. I mean, it may not be, what they prefer, but it makes sense for them to make that choices. That's a gift. That's what a writer strives to do, is make the characters so whole that even if they do something absolutely terrible, it makes sense.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's what I call growth. That's
Yeah.
growth in me as a writer,
Yeah.
and so that's the fabulous thing about it. You start off here, but you keep growing and growing to you get so comfortable now that it's second nature to know what the elements are to create a character. What do they need? I mean, I do have a sheet where, the high, typical, characteristic, worksheet, but then I really don't need that for certain characters because I know them.
Yeah.
So I'm able to just dive right into the storyline and say, what are you going to do this time? And you're absolutely right. Just to go back to what you said about, characters from like the first book, what trouble are they going to get into? The second book, that's exactly what happened. Secondary characters got, caught up in some drama. And so that was what happened. And so, book 3, you're making me want to go right today, Julie.
I'm sure your readers will be very grateful to me for that.
Yes, they
um,
will.
Now, one of the things I really find fascinating about romance is that they'll write a trilogy or 6 books, with focusing on a couple. And then in the same world, they'll start another storyline or another group with, of stories for another couple or another thing, or, they keep the world growing and expanding and different points of view. Mysteries don't do that as much. They stick with the same protagonist, but romances do that. Any interest in, you're going to do this trilogy of maybe shifting or including somebody else, or are you going to start something new? Or do you not know at this
I
point?
know my readers love Deirdre Hunter and Hill Harris, her sexy detective lover. So they love that. So what I did in book 2, I introduced someone who is crazy in love with my main character, and that posed a problem. But for the most part, they're my universe. Those
Yeah.
two, their backs against the world. Their love can withstand anything. And I love the passion that they have. Look at me talking about like they're real. The
Yeah.
passion, passion that they
No,
have,
yeah.
and how they approach the dangers that come at them, because he's a cop and she's a former prosecutor and she's very headstrong. And he's like, look, I carry the gun and badge. You need to fall back. And she's like, no, no, no. She's very headstrong. And so then she gets in trouble and he has to come and rescue her. And so I love that dynamic. So it's like them against the world. So I'm not going to introduce.
Yep.
No.
Yeah. Get it. Keep going. So this is just me because I love hearing how writers write. Do you use Word? Do you use Scrivener?
You know why I'm laughing? I'm laughing because I have Scrivener, had it on my computer, never opened it.
Yeah.
So I am a word girl. I find it's just easier for me to just type, and go back, and I have different folders and I can move stuff around. But Scrivener, oh, I have Scrivener. I have Atticus. I have Designer. All of these software on my computer. Do I use them? No. Do I need to? Yes, possibly, especially Scrivener, because I've, heard writers say, hey, they're able to do so much more. But I need to take some, courses or lessons or whatever. And I believe Sisters in Crime probably has like a repository of speakers or whatever, training or
Yeah.
whatever,
There's
on Scrivener. So I need to dive into that.
In the webinar library, there are 2 Scrivener webinars to
Okay.
watch.
Okay.
And it definitely, for folks listening, it definitely has a learning curve, for sure. But if you're writing a series, what's nice is you can keep your character information, your setting information, all that kind of stuff, your Bible, if you will. And keep reusing it for different books so that you don't have to go back and say, what was his sister's name? You could just look in the file and find the sister's name and what she looked like and what, because again, as writers, you have time between these things and you forget or you misname somebody. But your readers, especially if they're binging
Oh,
it
they'll
over
know.
the course of a week, they're gonna know Barbara isn't Sherry. But you're acting like they're the same person. So I'm
They're not.
But the tools that work now, do you write chronologically? Do you write, from scene one to scene X, or do you write out of order?
Again, with my mind being analytical, I write chronologically.
Yeah.
However, I can tell you for book number 3, during one of my critique sessions, there's like, what about this? Because when you're writing a series, you really should build up, like book 1 was okay, book 2, better, and book 3 should be, wow, off the charts. So I said, this is something to think about. And so I will revisit and write out of order and drop that chapter in. So in that case, but typically it's scene by scene, chapter by chapter, and I just keep going in that way. I know it's difficult, because I have a tendency to edit while I'm writing, and I'm like, no, stop doing that, because you'll never get done.
Right.
And so you have to complete the first draft, which is not always the best, but it allows you to finish the actual manuscript. That's when the work starts. You go back and start your editing. So I need to pick that up and just continue going. But life happens, so when life happens, I just kind of stop, which is not good. But the bones are there. It's just a matter of firing up, pulling the file, actually doing a full reread from start to finish. So, the story's back in my mind again, and say, okay, where are we going? And start again.
And make yourself little notes in the manuscript to say, all right.
Yes.
I just changed this, so it's going to be changed in the beginning, but I'm not going to change it now, because you never know what's going to keep happening. And if you keep editing, some people can do that. Some people edit as they go, but other people, it's like, I got to get this idea out so that I can fix it.
Right. So what I do is, because like you said, I save them differently.
Yeah.
I save different files. So whatever I'm going to be working on, I will have the name, gotta have it all _, new edition, and then the date. And so I know that the one before is where I didn't drop the other chapter in, just in case I change my mind again. I can go back. I can go back.
Yes. Or just in case you have a word moment and you lose stuff. I spoke to a writer on this podcast who her word just blew up and she hadn't been backing up and saving enough. So she lost a huge amount of work. And whenever I hear somebody tell me that story, we all get that sick feeling. It's like, oh, wow.
Yeah, save and email it to yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can't do that too often. Right.
Email it
to yourself. Do put on whatever you need to do, but don't
drive or something. Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That hurts.
Yeah. And we've all had moments where, or times when you're using Word and you're just not paying attention to what you're cutting and you're pasting, and all of a sudden it's like, wow.
You lose something. Right.
That's a shame.
Right.
My hands sweat whenever somebody says that they write out of order, because I can't even imagine trying to hold that on.
Personally, I get confused. No, so it needs to be in chronological order.
Well, and you're keeping your whole book in your brain, and that's a lot to carry and to remember, and to, especially if life gets in the way and you're not doing it every single day. I mean, it's a lot.
Yeah, it is a lot. It is a lot.
Do you enjoy that first idea, getting it bloomed, or do you enjoy the editing more?
I love the idea. Editing, I think editing can be fun. I enjoy editing because it allows you to go in and tighten up spaces. It allows you to expand the world, make your settings more descriptive. It can fire up your dialogue. So I love that part. It's not exciting. You know, you write the story, you're like, yeah, but you still need to get to a point where if you want to hand it over to an editor, at least the heaviest of it all is done. And, you know, self-editing is not easy. And I would say get someone else with a second pair of eyes, because when you're in the story, there are certain things that you will miss.
Mm-hmm.
And so you need someone who is completely disinterested, you know, to look at it. But I think for me and my writers critique group, that's what we do. We critique.
It's awesome.
We
Awesome.
critique. And so we would send out, because I don't know how I do this, but I write the email and say, hey guys, you know, submissions are due in preparation for a meeting, and get a week. Everyone submits their stuff. Sometimes I'm like skating in at the last minute, but that's okay. And then I send another email and say, hey, here's the meeting. Here's a Zoom link. Let's go. And so when we do a round robin, you know, it's like whose submissions came in first. And then you would go around and like really line edit and go through, and, you know, you can ask questions before you know, when you submit your submissions, for review, and say, hey, is this working? You know, and so kind of like trigger us to kind of like pay more attention to that specific part. But they really help you to see certain things again, because they're like a third party looking at your stuff. I'm like a third party looking at their stuff. And so it gets tightened up that way too. So when you're ready to do a full blown edit, you can see pieces. Cause again, I saved all my edits to go through and say, you know, it's just easier when I can say, well, what did so-and-so say? What did so-and-so say? And I just say, hey, do I agree? And if I do, then I go in and make the edits. So it's work, but it's fun. It allows you, you know, just, you know, you're looking at the story through different lenses and say, hey, how can I tighten this up? Is the, you know, what's the motivation? Can I dial up the danger, some more? So yeah, editing is fun for me. So I enjoy it all.
Well, and the gift of a good critique group, and let's put a pin in that for a second, because there can be, you know, issues around critique groups, but is that you'll think you're perfectly clear about why that choice was made or what she was thinking or why he's there or whatever. But if your group all says, I didn't get it, like, why didn't she do this? Then you can get defensive and, well, you know, but if they're saying that, then it's not clear and you need to clear it up. So it's to be critiqued well is a shift as well. And it's, you know, and I loved when you said, do I agree or not? Was this helpful or not? Instead of like, oh, I screwed up and I'm just going to take everyone's advice. Like, no, you know what you're trying to do. What helps you, use it. But if it doesn't, don't.
Yeah, yeah. And that's the key. Like you said, a good critique group. I've known these ladies for quite some time. And so we do constructive criticism. We don't tear down. We do constructive. So, you know, we would say, tacitly say, you know, these are my thoughts, and, you know, use them if you will. But this didn't make any sense to me. This wasn't clear. And then when you go back, you're right. I do agree. It doesn't make any sense or it's not clear. And so, you know, it's about making our work tighter, better, cleaner, so to speak. And so, you know, we want to make sure that we all support each other, because as you know, writing is such a solitary journey. You know, I'm sure you've heard that many, many, many times. But when you have a core group of writers who've been with you, and you know, we've polished synopsis, we've gone through editing stories, and just to see all of us succeed, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. It is a beautiful thing, again, when it works. If you're in a
When it
critique
works.
that isn't feeding you,
Right.
and it sounds like your group is great because everyone does the work. I mean, if,
Yes.
there's not, again, you hear all kinds of stories.
All the
Um,
stories.
but, this is, if you're looking for a critique group, make sure that it's working and everyone's doing, and you're invested in other people's work, and, that it works, because they don't always, and it's okay to
That's
step away.
unfortunate. Yeah. Yeah. And if it doesn't work for you, I would strongly advise you leave,
Yeah.
because it's not going to get any better.
No. No. Um, so you mentioned how solitary writing is, and it is, for sure, but it's also, community plays such an important role, and you don't know that at the beginning. Although your class sounds like it taught you right away that community is like, okay, wait, I like being in a room with these people talking about this stuff. But talk to me about community and that role, in just figuring out paths and how to do things, and what's going on, and, learning.
I think, well, let's just take Sisters in Crime. Let's just take that, and when I joined, it was to learn, and then it offered the opportunity to give back. And
Mhm.
give back in the sense of being a mentor, which I am for Sisters in Crime. I'm a mentor as well. And so this is my second go around as a mentor. So it gives me great joy, not only to know that I'm writing, I'm learning through the webinars, but community in the sense that you can give back. You can teach someone who is brand new the skills or the confidence to go forward. And I think what's interesting is that with SinC Connect, it's not so much me looking at their work. It's not so much me critiquing. It's about getting the mindset
Yeah.
there. And that was pretty cool because I also have another mentor out of San Francisco where I'm actually helping her write a book. So two different things. I'm a mentor,
Yeah.
but two different viewpoints of what I needed to do. And I made sure, and my first meeting, I was very clear. I said, let's look at the requirements of the program and look to see what I'm responsible for and what you're supposed to be getting out of this. This is what I'm not doing. I am not critiquing
Yes.
your work.
Yes. Right.
I'm here to help you strengthen yourself, give you confidence to finish your work, to go out there and do your first author showcase, local, if you're local author showcase, wherever you are, just to give you that confidence. So in terms of community, it's a great thing where you show up and people know your name, kind of like Cheers. It's like with Black Writers Guild. Hey, Dee, how are you? I get emails if I don't show up for meetings. Where have you been?
That's
So
great.
I
Yeah.
really love that. And with the Maryland Writers Association, I just wrapped up my tenure as a member at large. So I did 2 terms there, and I just wrapped that up. And they're like, "We don't want you to go. Can you continue being part of the local author committee?" Sure, why not? And do something else. I'm like, sure, why not? So in terms of community, you feel like you're on this journey together. You feel there is strength in community.
Mm-hmm.
There is strength. And I think through all the organizations that I'm a part of, I get that. I'm a part of something bigger than myself.
I'm going to underline something you just said, just as an aside, is the serving on boards. Volunteering and serving on boards is such a great opportunity. It's work for sure, but such a great opportunity to meet people who you might not work with in other worlds, and do something together and forge a bond that way. And so I love that you've done this board service, and of course they don't want to let you go because you're a good volunteer. But I just, folks listening to this, if you're in a chapter or in an organization and they're doing a call for board members or for volunteers, or there's a conference coming up and they need help, please consider stepping forward and putting your name in the ring, because it makes a difference to you. And it also, these organizations need it so desperately. Yeah.
I enjoy every bit of it. It's like, you see what goes on. It's not enough that you pay your dues, to be able to go behind the scenes to see how it actually works,
Yeah. Yeah.
putting things together. And like, they said, oh, I know, we just had our last meeting. We just flipped over. So the new board will be meeting on the 20th, because we have our meeting, Maryland Red Association, the third Monday of every month. And I will still show up because I'm now helping with another contest that they have,
Yeah.
And I need to find out what's going on for the fall, if we're going to do a fall local author showcase. So I'll be on that committee as well. So these are things that, and you're absolutely right. You don't, the opportunity to meet other people that you wouldn't necessarily meet because you just see their names, but you wouldn't be able to interact with them. So, and you're absolutely right. Be a part of something that's a little bit bigger than you. The community, and I can't stress this enough, as you pointed out, there is strength in community. You don't have to be a solo writer, be a part of something that will serve you and you serve them.
Yes. No, I love that. I love that. And also you can affect change. Right? If
Absolutely.
you don't love something or the way something's going, volunteer to be part of it and try to change.
Oh yeah. It's yeah. And when you talk about change, I'm like, yeah, how about this? And I say, well, would you consider this?
Right.
Because sometimes folks are so entrenched in the way
Yes.
they do
Yeah.
things. And so change isn't always something that they're willing to embrace, but it all depends on how you present it to them.
That's right. That's right. Huge thing. So let's talk about your publishing journey and what surprised you about that. Because you've got a critique group and you're all published and you're all doing things together. That's not always the case. Although I do think there's an energy around things where people, you know, boost each other up and you all rise together, and you put your hand down to lift the next person up if they're not quite there. But talk to me about publishing and that side, because that's the business side. You can't control that as much as you might want to in a lot of ways. But it's, if you want to get your books out there, you got to figure out how, make decisions about how you're going to embrace the publishing world.
Oh, absolutely. I think starting out, just looking at other authors, trying to do the traditional thing, that was never what I wanted. I love to maintain my creative control. Sorry. I want to be able to say, this is who I'm going to have design my book. This is my vision for the book. This is how I want the layout. So I have different teams that I go to work with. So I knew self-publishing was the path that I wanted to take because it allowed me flexibility. I'm not tied to a contract that says you need to finish book number 2, because if that's the case, I would have broken that contract. Because, it took me a while to get to book 2. So I like to do things at my own pace. And I know my readers are like, come on now, we've been waiting patiently. I get it. I love them, but they get to see me or read through my e-newsletter, that I typically would do monthly, but now I'm like giving myself some grace. I'm doing it bi-monthly. So I still give them some of me there. Mm-hmm. And they know when the third book drops, my core audience is already there. It's been built up.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And so traditional, I just can't, because you're going to have to wait. You're going to have to do, typically they would do marketing. You still have to do the heavy lifting. You still have to find opportunities, because now I think things have changed where they're looking to see what's your marketing, like, what are you bringing to the table? We're giving you this opportunity to be traditionally public, but what are you bringing to the table? Whereas, being a self-published author, you do it all. It's not
Yeah.
easy, you know?
No.
And so you have to surround yourself with a solid team. You have to know you're going over here for editing. You're going over here for the book cover, design. You're going over here for the interior, so to speak. Even now they do have software, to assist you. So you don't have to spend money that way, but you do need to spend money, I think, for the developmental or whatever editing that you may need,
Yeah.
polish your work. Um, and so for me, self-publishing, I love it. You know, I have some great people, that I work with. And, even though my third book isn't done, um, the cover is done. My designer, she put all three together. I was like, oh my God, they look so good.
Yeah.
Wow, this is fantastic.
Yeah.
But I may change because it's been a while. It's been sitting, but she will be ready when I'm ready. So I have to give myself some grace. So self-publishing, I love it. It allows me to maintain my creative control. And there's no rush. I get to it. I do whatever I want to work on, and in between, you know, do a little poetry here, dabble over here in short stories. And so I love that path.
And the point you made is an important one of you need to understand how the business works no matter what journey you take. And you can take many journeys in your
Oh yeah.
life. You know, there
Oh
might
yeah.
be a point, you know, in 10 years, you're like, you know what, I'm going to try this or I'm going to do this. But I have to understand how this works. And it does change a lot. But when you're indie published, you're your own publisher. So,
Oh
so
yes.
as you said, you're making active decisions all the time. It's like,
Oh
okay, this needs to be edited, so I need to hire an editor. I need a good cover, so I'm going to hire somebody to do that. That's incredibly important decision making. That's all on you.
yes, because even though you're self-published, your covers should be of a certain level
Yes.
that if someone looks at it, you're like, yeah, she just put that together. No, 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 no.
Right.
It will be such that you can't tell that it's self-published. And so
Yeah.
even the
Yes.
marketing, and I'm telling you, I get really excited because you can tell my excitement. You go out there and all you have to do is just, you know, Google local events, and see what's there. You enter and say, hey, you know, what are the requirements? See whether or not they'll accept you, because some of these, events, they're very, you know, they look at your application, and all depends. If they have too many romance, they won't take you. And so you keep looking for different, opportunities. Or guess what? You create it yourself. You go
Right.
to your local, coffee shop and say, hey, this is what I'm thinking, or a local store, and say, would you mind? There are quite a few, literally down the street from where I live. There are like two. So if ever I want to do something, you know, if they're open, you're not going to know if they're open to showcasing you if you don't ask.
Yes.
Create your
And
own
that
opportunities.
Well, and that's hard to do for a lot of people, Delia. So it's almost like when you're putting on your publisher's hat, you gotta act the part. Even though
Yes.
inside you may be a wreck, on the outside, and no harm, no foul. Somebody says no, it could be for a million different reasons. So yeah,
Move
great,
on.
thank you. Move on.
Move
What's
on.
next? Yeah,
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 I'm telling you, you can't let one no determine your path.
yes,
You'll experience several no's in this business unless you're like really fortunate, lucky, born under a lucky star or whatever. But you will conceivably experience a lot of no's before you get to where you want to be. So I tell people, if your outlook is to be traditionally published and you keep getting the door slammed in your face, if this is something you truly want, you have to keep knocking. You have to keep going if this is what you truly want. For me, I already know my path, what I wanted. I create my own, opportunities. If there is something, you need to meet and greet folks, because I also have a blog where I interview writers, and you never know when they will invite you
yes, yes.
to
You know,
speak. They will
yeah,
invite you to sell your work. You know,
yeah,
so it's all about networking as well.
yeah.
And
And
in my
network
group, we share opportunities. We share opportunities.
which is critical, but networking is not a bad word. I mean, people are get so, and that's not, you have to build your networks, you have to build your community. That's what this whole business is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, you've obviously done an amazing job building that business and figuring it out. And, I'll join in the chorus of when's the third book, but I'm not going to make you say that aloud
No pressure. No pressure,
But
Julie.
also, thank you for being a mentor for Sisters in Crime and for being a member, because that the mentorship program and as a mentor, you learn so much or get re-inspired. I mean, it's a gift to do both. So
I think it really it's so exciting, and like my first mentee, just to give her that boost, and we do exercises and certain things that she didn't think about. I'm like, yeah, let's do this. Or she's talking, I said, stop, listen to just what you said just now. That's the answer.
yeah.
Because sometimes you're so in your head, like the mentee that I'm working with right now, I'm like, you have the answer. It's right there. So now all you have to do is develop your blueprint. But it's such a joy, when I'm even able to share with her that I was presenting at the Black Writers Guild, my 5 legal essentials for authors. And she said, can I come? I said, sure. So she showed up. And I had to pause during my presentation and say, hey guys, just want to introduce you to my mentee from Sisters in Crime. And so that was so cool.
Yeah.
That was so cool. So I get excited to see that she's excited, to see that certain things, all I'm doing is just teasing out what she already has in her brain, what she already has inside of her, just me working with her. And I love that the mentorship program is only like 6 months or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's enough to really drill down, because when we get on these calls, right away, let's do this. Let's what's your challenges? And I give her homework to do too.
Yeah.
Julie, she gets homework, and so she has to show me the homework when we meet. And I said, if you didn't have a chance to do it, just say so. No hard feelings, but just be transparent in saying that I didn't have a chance. And then she was like, well, I didn't know how are we going to feel this time? Well, we did.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I really enjoy, it's a great, program. And I have to say kudos to Sisters in Crime for implementing that.
Wow. Thank you. And thank Jennifer J. Chow. This was her immediate past president project,
Awesome.
and this was her brainchild. So, but thank you for being a member of Sisters in Crime, and thank you for a fabulous conversation.
Thank you so much for having me, Julie. It's a pleasure to meet you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being with us today. Sisters in Crime is about community. We were founded to advocate for women crime writers, and we continue that mission by fighting for equity in the crime writing community. Sisters in Crime is an international, inclusive organization for all who write and love crime fiction, mystery, thrillers, and suspense. Join us at sistersincrime.org and make sure you subscribe to this podcast.